Welcome to the event. I'll say it again because we just started recording, but hi everyone, welcome to the Power of Disability 2025. Thanks so much for coming and for being on time. Excellent. I might pass over to Cara and just introduce yourself there, Cara, and we'll get started before we introduce Leesa.
Yes, of course. So, my name is Cara, and I'm going to be one of the MCs today, along with Stephen, who we're just waiting for. So, I'd like to obviously welcome you all to this event. So obviously, the theme of this event is breaking barriers. So, we're going to be focusing on dismantling misconceptions about disabilities, including for students with disabilities, advocating for inclusion and accessibility within um, higher education for students with disabilities, and focusing on creating a more equitable future in education where students with disabilities can lead the way in what we need to thrive in education. So we're gonna have a variety of discussions and feedback sessions, and we're very excited to welcome you here today. So I'm just gonna let you know a couple of kind of housekeeping things. So ISL interpreters and captions will be available through the features on Zoom. All the slides that will be used in all of the presentations over the next 2 days will be available on the Power of Disability website. If you want to download them, if you want to look at them. It's also, I need to let you all know that today's event will be recorded. So if you don't want to be involved in the recording, if you just turn off your camera and microphone. If you're having any issues with the technological side of things, we have a head tech support on the call today to help you out. And if you have any questions, we would ask you to just use the Zoom chat feature because it's a little bit easier for us to work with than everyone putting their hands up. So our first speaker today is going to be Leesa Flynn, who was the former chair of the Students with Disabilities Advisory Group in 2023/2024. So Leesa is going to give us a bit of a welcoming address about some opening remarks and some things about her experiences as a disability advocate. So we're very excited to hear from her.
Thank you so much, Cara. It's such a pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. And thank you so much for joining our Power of Disability conference today. As Cara mentioned there, I am a former co-chair of the group. I was co-chair of the group last year, and I was actually one of the MCs of the Power of Disability this time last year as well. I actually can't believe it's been a year. It's so crazy. So I do recognise a lot of faces here, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Leesa Flynn. I am a disability advocate. I myself am a wheelchair user, and I'm also a primary school teacher as well. So a lot of the time when I give talks like this, I kind of talk a lot from personal experience. So all of this is kind of the experience that I've had, I suppose, growing up as a wheelchair user, going through school, going to university like many of you are currently, and then kind of moving on to a career in the workplace. So to start off at the beginning, I suppose growing up, I always like describe it as being part of two worlds. So what I mean by that is that obviously I grew up in a lot of non-disabled environments despite being disabled myself. I'm the only person in my family with a physical disability. I went to mainstream primary and secondary school. So in those environments as well, I was the only physically disabled person there. Obviously, as a back of that, then all my friends and my peers were all non-disabled. So I kind of was immersed in this non-disabled environment, which to a certain extent was fantastic. But again, obviously, the second world that I was part of undisputedly was the disabled world, where I obviously have had my own struggles, as many of you will probably identify with as well, depending on your own experiences. But as a wheelchair user, kind of growing up and trying to have to conform to that non-disabled world all the time, did have quite a few struggles that came with it. So they're kind of the two worlds that I kind of identified with growing up. As I mentioned, I did go to mainstream primary and secondary school, and did have like a lot of non-disabled social circles. So that in itself was great because I kind of, never really thought there was anything I couldn't do due to an impact of disability. But again, on the reverse side of that, it kind of led me to start off having quite a bad relationship with my disability in my, say, teen years, early 20s, because it wasn't something that I was very comfortable talking about. It wasn't something that I was very comfortable with addressing. And as we all know that, the longer that you go without addressing something, the more scared you are to address it. So it kind of got to the point where I was very scared to like address the topic of my disability in case people saw me differently. So I kind of had a lot of internalized ableism there that I kind of had to work through in my early 20s and to kind of get to the stage where I am now, where I am comfortable talking about my disability. I suppose we take it back to 2020 when we're all in lockdown. I think we all know at this stage we were kind of given this unforeseen amount of time where we were kind of all on our phones, kind of communicating through that way alone, and social media was a big thing. And I know myself, I was kind of looking at everyone's stories on Instagram and seeing what everyone was doing. And I suppose at that point, I kind of saw a lot of people, doing videos online, kind of talking into their phones and making all these videos where they're talking about different things. Because they had nothing else to do, we're all stuck at home. And I kind of thought to myself, God, I would love to be that confident that I'd be able to talk to a camera and like reach an audience. And while I was thinking about that, I was looking at all these people and I was thinking to myself, God, yeah, they all are, vloggers or they make videos, whatever the case may be, but they all have their own unique flair. And like, I thought to myself, if I did that, what would be my own unique flair? And of course, I hummed and hawed about it, but I couldn't deny the obvious, which would be talking about my disability and my experience. So when I tell you, speaking about my disability on social media was the scariest thing I ever did. It genuinely was the most out of my comfort zone I've ever been, but it has been the best decision I ever made. Through that alone, just doing that and reaching out to an audience online talking about my disability and my experience, I met so many like-minded people, this amazing disability community that I never had even reached out to before. I made some amazing friends from it, and that is how I even got involved with an organization like AHEAD in the first place. And I think, as I said, I can only speak from my own experience, but I think that when you have a disability, specifically like a physical disability from my experience, it can be a very isolating experience. You can kind of feel like, God, I'm the only person going through this struggle, or no one else sees the world through my lens. But I think the minute you become involved with a community of like-minded activists who are also disabled, who also, to a certain extent, see the world through the same struggles as you have, it's so empowering and it makes your life and the way you view it so much easier because you know that you've got people who identify with what you've been through. And that for me was an absolutely incredible thing to experience after being the only person in my life for so long who had these feelings. Suddenly I could talk to somebody else about it and be like, oh, I'm actually not alone. Like this isn't just unique to me, like other people go through this too. And that was amazing for me. So as I said, that led me to working with the likes of AHEAD, which has been incredible. And I love my AHEAD family so much. It's so great to be back with them today. I was part of the Student with Disability Advisory Group in 2022, which again was brilliant to kind of talk to other students and see what struggles they were going through and how we could address them. And then I was honoured to become co-chair of the group in 2023 for an academic year, which was fantastic. Again, these are all things that, say, back in 2019, 2018 and beyond that, I would never have seen myself having the confidence to do, number one. And number two, speaking about my disability was something that I could never have seen myself doing. So that in itself has been so, so rewarding. As I mentioned at the beginning, I am a primary school teacher, and this is now my second year since being qualified. And growing up, all I ever wanted to be was a primary school teacher. Like everybody knew it. It was all I ever wanted to do. No matter what phase I went through, it was always teaching. And again, like as I mentioned earlier, because I was growing up in this non-disabled environment, surrounded by people who didn't have the struggles of a disabled person, I kind of was of the mindset that I never really realized it would be something that I would struggle with because again, I wasn't addressing my disability. So I began the course in 2020, smack bang in the middle of the pandemic in Maynooth University. And I think like initially, because so much of it was going on over Zoom because we were in the middle of lockdown anyway, everyone was kind of at an even keel. So I didn't really realize at that time how some elements of the course, more practical elements like certain placements and things like that, had never been looked at through a disabled lens before. And there has been so much of courses that are placement based that have never been looked at through a disabled lens before, specifically a wheelchair user lens before. And that quickly became very clear to me when we started coming out of lockdown. I myself had some surgery that I had to undergo in 2022, which led me having to the first second year of the course. So by the time I was in second year of the course, it was 2023. So lockdown by then had long been forgotten. Everything had gone back to being in person. And it's a very long story, which I won't get into now, but they became the infamous story of how I was going to attend the Gaeltacht, because if you've done teaching before, you'll know that the Gaeltacht is a mandatory component that you have to attend it for 2 weeks in first and second year of the teaching course. So there was a lot of humming and hawing that occurred. There were certain elements that no one had ever thought of before, such as, how I was going to attend, the terrain there might be kind of unsuitable for my wheelchair because, again, Gaeltachts are in beautiful parts of the country, but they're very rural. How I was going to get to and from the house I was staying in to the college, through, um, from a vehicle point of view, all that kind of stuff had never been looked at through a disabled lens before. And, slowly but surely we kind of thought, oh my goodness, like what am I actually going to do because I need this component to actually graduate. As it transpired, nothing could be done in that space of time. So when at the time I was very relieved that I got allocated that accommodation. The wheelchairs are in the situation getting a compromise as an experience. I didn't get to go and experience it the same as everybody else. So that was kind of just one thing. Now, as a follow-up to that, I am very pleased to say this year that I know somebody who is currently doing the course who's also in a wheelchair, and she has been able to attend the Gaeltacht in person in her wheelchair because they have put those allocations in place, which is absolutely fantastic to see that we have progressed. But then again, these are the things that need to be addressed. And as I said, like it's nobody's fault that those things kind of occurred. It's just that the course had never been looked at through a disabled lens before. But I suppose the one point that I kind of want to drill home here is I am the first wheelchair user to become a primary school teacher from Maynooth University, and there has been talk that I'm actually the first wheelchair user to become a primary school teacher in Ireland in general. And as much as I'm so proud of that, and I still am so proud of that achievement, it hasn't come without its struggles. And I suppose the one point I want to kind of talk to you guys who are as university students is that if there is a career path that you are considering undertaking beyond university and you don't necessarily know if it's a path for you because you're worried that your disability will impact it, just because it's never been done before doesn't mean that you can't be a trailblazer and be the first person to do it. And I know that that's why I share my story, because I never had anyone to kind of look up to who had done what I have done before. And I think if I had, it would have made the experience a lot less daunting for me, as the case was. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope that what I have said has been of some use. And yeah, thank you so much again to AHEAD for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Oh, sorry, I'm actually unmuted. I thought I was muted. Thank you so much for that, Leesa. We're actually missing one of our MCs. He's unable to come up, get on the link for some reason. So Cara and myself are going to MC the rest of the event. I might lead on. What did you think of that, Cara? Isn't Leesa amazing?
Yes, it's definitely so. As like a young person in university with a disability, I really do get that there is so. It is sometimes like people don't expect. It's never been done before. It's like a shock to people. I almost feel sometimes. So it's very nice to hear that someone else has had a similar experience, and I think that's really cool. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Leesa.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
she's amazing. She is so amazing. And she was such an amazing chair last year in the Students with Disabilities Advisory Group.